Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is March 2nd, 2026. This would be episode 32 of the playlist. Today, I will be speaking about comments being made by the Democratic leadership over the United States conflict with Iran. For those who might not have tuned in before to this podcast and show, welcome. It's a conservative-leaning podcast, but I do take in both viewpoints. And if it's allowed, it's allowed, no matter if it's done by a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a Federalist. I believe in the Constitution has all the answers. Democrats can be Federalists too. Yeah. Being a Federalist does not make you a Republican or even a conservative. I am a conservative Republican. I'm not MAGA. Okay, let's talk about Iran. And we knew that this was going to be, or everyone should know, that this would be highly controversial to the Democrats. And the Democrats are going to and have spun this in a different light. You had Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the Congress of the United States, a New Yorker, who said that Iran posed no threat to the United States. I'm going to ask Democrats, do you feel that? Is that the way the rank and file, middle of the road Democrats, do you really feel that way? That Iran posed no threat? That they weren't, for the last 47 years, the sponsor of worldwide terrorism? That thousands of American lives have been lost, not to mention the millions of Muslims who were killed by Iran through terrorist proxy groups. I can't believe that Hakeem even reference that. To even say that Iran was not a existential threat. I can't understand that rationale. We know for a fact that Iran has been responsible for Hezbollah, Hamas, even funding underground cells of inside the Muslim Brotherhood. It goes beyond good conscience. It goes beyond that people like Tim Kaine and other Democrats are screaming, poor Iran, look what we did. Yeah, we want a regime change because the regime that was there absolutely came out and said, we're for the destruction of Israel, we're for the destruction of America, we want to see them dead, gone, wiped off the face of the earth. You know what? I tend to believe an enemy when they tell me they're going to make a threat against me. Maybe Iran was not going to make an atomic weapon. That could be the case. But making nuclear grade plutonium can only be used for one thing. Weapons. That's weapons grade. It doesn't take 5 years now or 10 years like the Manhattan Project. You know, you see it on television. They worked since 1941 on it, you know. It doesn't take that type of engineering anymore to make a nuclear weapon. Given a state sponsor push and having the materials available to test, you could probably take 4 to 8 weeks from beginning to end to make a nuclear device. Now, delivering it and, designing it for a warhead or any of those things, yeah, that takes a lot of practice, a lot of engineering, and that does take time. But if you gave a regime like Iran the time, yeah, they would do it. They were a threat, not only to America, but to everyone around them. And they proved that by attacking the countries around them. So to try to tell America, the American people, who that's all Jeffries represents, that Iran was not a threat and this was not needed. You had an Iran that all they did was stall the talks, promised you the world, refused to let you verify, and just, sat there with a halo over their heads going, we're not going to build a nuclear weapon, but we're going to wipe you all out. Death to America. I can't understand the Democrats going into an election year taking that position. Jeffrey said, well, we have to wait till we hear from the Gang of Eight. A gang. It's not a gang. What the Democrats are pulling is worse than what the Republicans pulled on Clinton with Whitewater. The Democrats have played into Iranian hands from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama to Sleepy Joe. They're not playing with these characters now. You're playing with a president who said and thinks we go in, we're going to discuss, these are the things that are on the table. We're going to discuss those items. We're not discussing anything else. And if you go off those items and start going sideways and I can't pull you back into negotiations, I'm done with you. I give you one chance at the table. There were people saying, oh, we were so close. You weren't close because they keep moving the goal They keep moving the goalposts further and further away, the Iranians. That's how the Middle East deals. And when you go, all right, now what do you want? They will cut your heart out because they know you're weak. You beat them up a bit and go toe-to-toe and, and you don't want to go toe-to-toe against the United States. And they learn that. But they wanted more time to build more rockets, to become more of a threat. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Harris would have won? Or even if Joe Biden would have won a second term? I can't imagine. I can't imagine this world. You have United States government officials, elected officials, working against the interests of the United States. Right now, today, this can't be. And the Democrats and Republicans on the Hill have every right to question President Trump on what is going on and what is happening. And if this goes any longer than this, we really have to have a sit down. But to say we'll stop and we'll gut it and we'll end it is playing now right into the Iranians' wheelhouse. And I've said this before. Let Trump deal as harsh as we need to be with Iran, because it will just make it a safer world for whatever administration comes next, be it Republican, be it Democrat. A castrated Iran and a safer Middle East. Who does that hurt? Doesn't hurt anyone. And if I were the Democrats, I'd go, we want to sit down with you. We want to know what's going on. But get the job done. We don't want to see another Iraq. We don't want to see another Afghanistan. Totally screwed up by Sleepy Joe. Totally underestimated by Bush II. Only because he couldn't act in a manner that he could have finished the job. Couldn't do it. We have a president now that can do it and wants to do it, and quite honestly will do it. You have Democrats screaming, this is all done to hide, the Epstein. For the Democrats to throw that logic out there, I say this to the Democrats that say that and think that. President Trump, during his campaign, demanded the release of information that the lawyers wanted in the case against Epstein, in the civil case. And in some cases now it will probably turn criminal, but that's besides the point. And Trump called for that. And and Biden refused to do it, you know, citing reasons he could have overcome, but refused to. And Trump had said, hey, if you elect me, I'm going to release that information. I'm going to release the information about the assassination of Kennedy, about Martin Luther King, about a whole bunch of things. And which he did. But all that information, on JFK's assassination and even RFK's assassination, it was out there for years. There wasn't very much to be understood or looked at. And it really, honestly, no emotion suit. Is that going to change the price of gasoline or food? Now, this war will change the price of gasoline. Will change the price of gold. Will change the economy. I agree. Anyone that says, oh, it won't. No, it will. But I'll pay a little bit more for gasoline and fuel if we can get rid of a nuclear threat out of Iran. 47 years of this. I can't imagine Iran with nuclear weapons. It's hard for me to imagine Pakistan with nuclear weapons because of their hatred of India and India's disdain for Pakistan. That can only lead to problems and will lead to problems. Russia was a favorite threat. Our industrial might liked the idea of an adversary like Russia. Russia has suffered so much in the last 80 years, 90 years. The last thing they want to do is repeat that. The last thing they want is a war. China, different mindset. War is just bad business if you're on the receiving end. They're learning that selling weaponry is pretty profitable. Now, this stuff is junk, but if you throw enough junk, something's going to get through. It's cheap. It's easy to operate. Set and forget. But they're not a true threat unless they're really, unless we were to attack China, would they even think of attacking the United States? It's just not in their logic. Even Russia would know that an attack on NATO, an attack on the United States would just end everything. Even in there is no such thing as a limited nuclear war. If one side thinks they're going to lose, they're just going to unleash everything. And that's what you have to think. In any one of these type of scenario battles, the winner, if you can consider it a winner, is the person who shoots first. But let's get back to the Democrats and Iran. The Democrats should be cautiously supporting the president, because it can only help them in the future. Now, they might have to sit there and go, it was President Trump who cleaned up the yard who beat up the bully. But you know what? That fades. And if the Democrats were going, yeah, well, you know, we supported the president, we supported his action, you know, it was a bold step, and you know, but they won't do that. They're more interested in Epstein. They're more interested in shutting down ICE and Homeland Security. Making America less safe. And we know that there are terrorists here in the United States because Biden let hundreds of them in. And this isn't rhetoric. We have the proof. And you have members of Congress that support these terrorists. And I think that, again, all the Democrats are doing is paving the road for a Republican route of Democrats. You hear all the Democrats, you know, these strategists, fucking Carville, pardon my French, who says, you know, oh, the Democrats are going to take everything. How? How? The Democrats have done nothing in 14 months except shut the government down twice and sat there with crocodile tears about Epstein. That's it. That's all they've done. While we're finding out fraud, you know, all these Democrats, there's no fraud. This whole thing with the government and Doge and yeah, ridiculous. And then what happens? $9 billion. It's probably going to be closer to $15 billion just in Minnesota. We haven't looked in California. We haven't looked in Texas. We haven't looked that hard in Florida. And when there's fraud of the government and your taxpayers, they don't care if they were blue or red. They were only interested in the green. And this is what the Democrats wanted to protect, was the fraud that was going on. They wanted that hidden. They didn't want that coming out. And I've said it before on my podcast. I salute the Biden DOJ who went after people in Minnesota under the Biden administration for fraud. But here was the kicker with all that. For some reason, that never made the news. Why? Because they buried it. How could Harris have chosen Tim Walz when there was so much fraud investigation going on under his administration? Well, I'll tell you again why. Because Harris needed someone in there that would have to resign, and then she could pick a successor like well, she wouldn't have picked Hillary Clinton because those two didn't really get along. Hillary brilliant and Harris is a dingbat. But she probably would have grabbed Michelle Obama, or maybe even AOC, or maybe even Nancy Pelosi, or Hakeem Jeffries. You don't know who they would have chosen. With the idea that Tim Walz isn't going to be there long, this is all going to come out, we're going to make sure it comes out, and then he's gone. He has to resign, an a la Spiro Agnew. The idea that the Democrats get up on national television and say that Iran didn't pose a existential threat to the United States or our allies. Really? Really? Ask Israel. Ask Saudi Arabia what's going on with the Hutus and who's funding that. The lies. And no one's calling them out. I mean, yes, Fox does, but Fox News. It's all lies. It isn't lies. It's facts. And I realize there's 28% of the Democrats that will just follow the blue ticket no matter what. The same 28% of red will follow whatever the GOP is doing. I get that. But you have news organizations going out there. What was it? The Daily Wire, I think, was going out there saying that the government is forcing people to into the military. That was a big article today. We don't have a draft. And then you read on, they go, they're making people at 18 register with selective services. Yeah, that's been that way since 19 whatever. At 18, you had to register to the selective service. That's what you had to do. That never changed. No one took that away. No one said, yeah, now under Trump, I'm going to make you do it. That has been the law for a long, long, long time. Can the government reinstitute the draft? You bet they can. Would they have a ready list available? Yep. But they also have a ready list of birth certificates too. So that name didn't show up on there. Maybe you forgot. We didn't. Now, of course, it's a federal crime not to register with selective service, but it's as long as you do it before you're 26 years of age, you'll be all right. But you have to register, and it's not registering for the draft; it's registering for the selective service. That's all it is. But you have them running around going, "See, they're going to draft you. They're going to draft you. Look, no war, no that." And they're perfectly okay with Iran saying, we're going to wipe this group of people out. I don't understand the support of a regime that has killed literally millions of its own people over the last 40 years and millions of people worldwide. Why they should be protected and Donald Trump is a Nazi fascist. Unbelievable. The Democratic logic, and I wish they could just be string of commercials, all showing what these people have said and holding their feet to the fire. you could be loyal to your party, and I get that. You're going to have that, and I'm not saying that's the right way to be, and I'm not saying being independent, but you can steer your party around. But the dangerous talk of the Democrats, the dangerous talk, where you hear them go, well, we want regime change. Maybe we need some of that here in the United States. Dangerous talk. We have a regime change every 4 years. It's called an election that we want protected and want honestly. You know, we want an election where we don't have to guess whether or not it was rigged. And there was no rigging. Then you go through and you're finding out all this information that, hey, a lot of stuff was a little hanky-panky here and there. And not to say that the Republicans never hanky-pankied. Let's end it. It's an easy way to end it. Easy way to end it. Can't be any mistakes about it. Voter ID. I have to show ID when I check into a hotel. I have to show ID when I purchase things. I have to show ID sometimes when I buy a lotto ticket. You have to show ID now when you go to Cracker Barrel. Where's the uproar? You can't get on an airplane. Can't drive a car. You can't buy a house. You can't get a credit card unless you show ID. But you could vote for the people that are going to run this country and tell the rest of us what to do. You could just walk in there and we don't care who votes. Get out of here. And you go, well, we have laws. They haven't worked. And we had laws too about our borders. They were disregarded, not enforced. How do I know you're not doing it over there too? See, that's logic that the Democrats go, oh, no. Now you're in a rant. No, we're not. I'm saying if you didn't take care of that law, what say you're going to take care of that law? Oh, now laws are like a cafeteria. You could pick and choose which ones you want to do, and that's fine as long as it's your group doing it, right? Yeah. Constitution. And you get to challenge it too. You get to add to it. You get to take away from it. Just follow the instructions. It's not hard. And I do understand Democrats who are saying, hey, this fighting can't go on like this, without a war's power or anything of that nature. I get that. And you know why I get that? Because that's the law. And you just can't pick and choose which laws you're going to abide by. What people in Congress and the Senate know, there are things that can be released to the general public, and there are things that can't. Because we compromise intelligence, we compromise people, we compromise friends who are with our enemies. So you can't jeopardize that. But what some politicians do is they use that to plant the seed. To say, well, they're not showing me any proof, knowing darn well you can't show the proof on it because it would expose. And they know that. And yet the government can't say, hey, and both sides do it. This is not just something the Democrats have done or the Republicans have done. Both sides have done it, knowing that the government can't show its hands. And they have to dance around. I am sure there was plenty of stuff going on that the Biden administration could not say what they were doing or why they took this road. I'll say that on certain things, absolutely. Some secrets are just that, secrets. Just like when people scream, we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. We were never a democracy. We're a republic. If we were a democracy, we'd probably still have slavery. So, yeah, we're not a democracy. Don't sit there and say, no, we're a true democracy. We're not a true democracy. True democracy is mob rule. All right. I'm going to cut this short. It's been 36 minutes. I want to keep this under 45 minutes. It's Monday. I will be at Socrates Station tonight. Socrates, South Carolina, between Murrells Inlet and Myrtle Beach, but it's really in Myrtle Beach, Socrates. Great food, great restaurant bar, great people, great service. I love it there. You should try it out. They have a menu online. They are not a sponsor. They're friends. All right, everyone, if you can give to a charity, please give to a charity. Just make sure it's a real charity. Don't become a victim trying to help victims. If you're not comfortable with that, I certainly understand why you might not be comfortable with it. Think about donating to a food bank. That helps extremely local. And you could also make a monetary contribution to them so that they could use that to address an immediate need for people. Say a prayer. Prayer works no matter what a Democrat might tell you. And with that, I'm going to say good night. Wish everyone safety. Say a prayer for our military. Say a prayer for the people in Iran. They could use prayers. Let's hope that we do a regime change and those people can be a free and prosperous nation again and live in peace and have their own country. All right. Everyone else, do what you want to do. Like, comment on this show. Subscribe. But just leave a comment and let me know where you're from. All right, everyone. Enjoy. I'm going out as I fade to